Hey y'all, welcome back to the realm of Kidlit comments, where we discuss everything Kidlit related as well as comics, graphic novels, and manga. So we are in the midst of April right now with tons and tons and tons of things going on. Time is really funny. January always feels so long, and January was so long for me because I had so much stuff happening and I got really sick in January was a long month, but after January it's just like boom 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 boom. The months just fly by because it's almost May and I'm not sure where time went. But this year, I don't even think I did this last year on my old channel, but this year I wanted to go back to doing the kind of like quarterly check-ins, right? Where you do quarter one, quarter two, mid-month, quarter three, and then you look at everything in your final stats in the subsequent year. So I wanted to take some time today and look a little bit at what I have enjoyed, what has worked, what hasn't worked so far in 2025. I will say one thing off the top. I think I am reading significantly slower than I have in previous years, but I've also had a lot more going on professionally this year than I've had in years past. So that has occupied a lot of my time. Not anything that's bad, enjoying it. It's a lot of good networking and getting out there and getting new opportunities, experiencing new things. So it's absolutely wonderful. But there have been a lot of days when I've come home and I'm like, I just want to sleep. I don't want to do anything but sleep. I just want to exist. And so my reading has slowed down. Now I will say, because when I say my reading has slowed down, the numbers are not going to look that way, and that is perfectly fine. I always get hesitant about doing these videos because I people are like, that's not slow. It is for me. I do read professionally. It is a part of my job. So with that being said, that's a lot of what I do. Not all of it, but I do have to keep up with what's happening in the kidlit arena as a part of my profession. It helps me to do so. It helps me better be able to do my job. So with that being said, my friends, when I give you these statistics, please do not come for me in the comments. So yes, I'm like, oh, I'm reading slow. You're gonna be like, girl, I know. All right, we just get that kind of disclaimer out of the way. These numbers are definitely very inaccurate as of today. These numbers are a little bit higher than what I'm going to give you, but we are just covering January, February, and March. And so that's what we're here to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the stats first, right? Just a little bit of stats brought to you by Allie at Hardback Order. We will always give credit where credit is due because that's the only reason why these numbers exist. And then I will tell you a little bit about the best and worst / most disappointing books that I have read so far this year. I think it's 5 that I put as my best and 2 that were most disappointing. I think overall this year I've had a very solid reading year so far. But let's get a little bit into the general stats. So between January 1st and how many days are in March? 30 days has September, April, June, November, 31 days in March. I always have to say that wrong. How embarrassing. Between January 1st and March 31st of 2025, I read 121 books. The pages read for those 3 months was 24,329, and the number of hours listened in terms of audiobooks was 258.5. My reading goal on Goodreads is 300. The real goal is 500. But last year I hit 1,000. Don't know if I'm going to make those numbers this year, but we're just going to read and see how things go, because my reading is very funny. Sometimes it will speed up drastically and sometimes it will slow down depending upon what's happening. All right, let's talk a little bit about genres. During my wrap-ups, I don't really get into these specific stats. I kind of wanted to save these for when I was going to do these quarterly wrap-ups, right? So genre, I want to change this a little bit. I think that this probably is a little different. It's going to be a little different going into quarter two because of some projects that I have going on. But I primarily read contemporary / realistic fiction. That is kind of my bread and butter. I am trying to expand that more into other genres. I'm really trying, but I technically gravitate heavily towards contemporary realistic fiction. 52.1% of my reading so far in quarter one was contemporary. That was followed by dystopian was a category, but I feel like that could be a crossover into others, but for all intents and purposes, 0.8%, 13.2% was fantasy, which I'm trying to up that. Historical, I'm kind of surprised that that's kind of on the lower end, but historical fiction's 8.3%. We have 0.8% for horror, 5% for mystery, nonfiction 11.6%, which is good because I wanted to see an increase in nonfiction this year, and that number is higher. We have a paranormal category, which also can kind of cross into fantasy as well, but 0.8%, and then 6.6% romance, which I haven't really been feeling romance this year at all. I don't know what that is. Talking a little bit about formatting. So 47.1% of the books that I read were actual novels. 28.9% of those were picture books. 1.7% were comics. We have 3.3% as manhwa, 16.5% graphic novels, and 2.5% are manga. That's not going to stay the same at all because we are in the midst of 30 and 30. Those numbers are definitely not going to remain an accurate statistic. But these are not all formatting things that Ali had on her spreadsheet. Some of these I added myself because they are subcategories that I like to take a look at. So this is not something I added by watching like how you can change your stuff. So there are a couple categories there that she didn't have. Format, in terms of like how I'm reading the books, I really wanted to lean heavily into my physical reading this year, right? I don't know why. It was just an urge for me. I wish I had an explanation for that, but I really don't. But it is happening, where 52.9% of the materials that I'm reading this year are physical. 13.2% of those are ebook. 1.7% have been a mixture. So whether that's ebook and audiobook, or physical and audiobook, or maybe even all three, because I have done that before as well. And then 32.2% have been audiobooks. So that is a big difference from last year. In terms of some author and publication things, 42.1% of the authors that I have read are authors that I've picked up before, which is good. So I have some loyalty there to people that I have read before, but 53.7% are new to me authors. So always trying to branch out, try new things, try new authors, new writing styles, etc. And let's see here, 4.1% of the books that I have read this year were debut titles. So checking out the freshman class of 2025, checking out some of their stuff. Primarily, most of the things that I have read this year have been traditionally published. I've only read one indie book, and I know that for a fact. I'm usually a little bit better about that, but when I throw in like job related things, it skews the data a lot. Looking at this, so wild to me, and this is a stat that I almost kind of like want to change just a little bit. So talking about the place where I've acquired my materials from. Okay. 91.7% of the books that I've read this year have come from the library. It's great. I mean, I'm a librarian. I do support the work that I do, not just by being employed, but actually like engaging with the collection. So that's, that's wild. 0.8% have come from Libro FM. 5% have been things that I've owned. I'm trying to definitely up that number. 0.8% have come from Audible, which was just 1, and then 1.7% came from KU, which that number also is going to change because of 30 and 30. And I pay for the KU subscription, so that definitely needs to go up. Talking a little bit about demographic, age-wise, the audience intended here, 33.9% have been children's books. And I love that. 13.2% have been adult. I'm reading a lot more adult than I think what people think, just because of the way that the channel is centered. It doesn't mean that I don't read adult books. Simply, it just means that you don't see it on here as often unless it's like a comic, manga, or manhwa. That's when I'll talk about it here. But I have been reading like adult nonfiction and fiction as well. I just save that material. That all of that stuff is Patreon exclusive material. Well, I'll do wrap-ups and reading vlogs and stuff around that material. 15.7% has been YA. That probably is going to shift a little bit in the coming months because of some projects. And then 37.2% has been middle grade. So it has been a very heavy middle grade first quarter, and that is skewed data because of middle grade March. That's just the way that it ended up happening. Some other interesting things that I like to look at in terms of data here, we have just looking at the percent of the materials that I've been reading that are diverse. So 58% have been diverse titles. I have been trying to also broaden like the countries that I'm reading from, trying to do a little bit better, picking up more translated works, but 112 of the books that I read came from the USA. Authors here in the USA, 3 from Japan, 4 from Korea, 1 from Canada, and hopefully in this month, I just literally today finished a translated teen book from Norway, I believe. It's a horror. Yeah, it was a teen horror from Norway. Very, very interesting book, but not for now. Okay. So those are pretty much the stats that I have that I'm interested in covering and that I'm interested in keeping up with. I mean, there's some other information here where I can see, how many books have I read that have been part of a series, how many books have been standalones, but I don't look at that information as hard as I do others. I will say I've had a wide range of publication year, which I'm a little surprised about. Most of my reading, 50% of my reading is 2025 new releases, but the other 49 point whatever percent is actually backlist titles, which is good. So, I've read 43 from 2024, 4 from 2023, 3 from 2021. I've gone back all the way to 2001. 2010, 2019, 14, 13, so I'm reading a broad range of things, and I think that has been a conversation that has happened here in the bookish space about not just reading new releases, but also finding worth and power in older titles, because they're just as relevant and amazing as those titles that are releasing in the year that we are reading them. All right, so those are my statistics. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the best and the I always hate saying worst, but it's the most disappointing, right? And for the best titles, I had about 17, I think, 5-star reads out of the 121 books I read. It is very difficult for me to give a book 5 stars. I am very hesitant. I'll give out a lot of 4 stars, a lot of 3.5s. And in my year, that has been a huge thing. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if this calculated what my average is for the year. I don't think yes, it is. Okay, so my average for the year so far is 3.8. So a lot of 3.5, 4-star ratings. I'm very stingy with my 5-star ratings, so that's why we only have 17. And out of those 17, I picked 5 that I thought were like the best of the best, the ones that I'm still talking about, the ones that I am still actively recommending. But I also had 2 that I think I rated both of them 2.5 stars. They were not good. And they were both 2025 releases. I'm going to start with those so that we can end on a more positive note, okay? So the first one that I have is The Last Bookstore on Earth. This is a post-apocalyptic book that had some appeal to me because it is literally a main character that works in a bookstore. The world has essentially come to an end. People are in survival mode, and she runs this bookstore that kind of operates in a variety of different ways. I did not like this book because it just, one, the world building was not good. It was so centered on this relationship that didn't even really have any depth to it, to be quite honest with you, that you couldn't, it was like you knew things had happened in the outside world, but there was no clarity. It was very foggy, fuzzy. It just didn't work well. There wasn't really a lot of world building. Then there were some seriously unrealistic things that happened. There is a scene in which a character is electrocuted to the point that their arm is severely damaged, and I don't know how we avoided infection, illness. Like, it was just very weird. It was unrealistic. I couldn't suspend any type of disbelief. I wasn't invested in it. I didn't care for it. I just didn't like it at all, and that was disappointing because I was looking forward to that one. We are now starting to get more dystopian books, but for a while there, after we went through this huge wave of dystopian, we weren't really getting that many dystopian books anymore. And so it was nice to see that we were getting several this year, but that was a huge letdown. And then also biology lessons, which I feel like I heard of because I was at a training or webinar or something where the author spoke about this book, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is very timely. We're talking about the repeal of bodily autonomy and a woman's right to her own body. Like, it just was the perfect storm or perfect situation for the storm that is currently happening. I should word it like that. And it was not. I don't know what this was. I'm not sure what happened, and to be quite honest with you, it's quite frustrating knowing that there are editors who are reading some of these books and are giving them the green light, because there's one thing if I just don't like a book, right? If there's something that it just didn't work for me as a reader. But I have been coming across books now where it's not a matter of the taste isn't aligning. It's a matter of this book literally doesn't make any sense, and I'm not sure when you read this book why this wasn't a thing that was addressed. Nobody thought to call it out. It's just very confusing. So for this one, we are living in, or the main characters live in, a world that I believe is ours. But something else happened. So the women are, of course, when we come to Roe v. Wade, all that has been taken away. But there's some other elements, some elevated elements to it, where people can report other people who are have looked up what an abortion is, or are attempting to have an abortion, but there's no explanation as to what this is, whether it is something that the government has invested in, whether it is something that is a part of this new society. It is weird. It's almost as if it tried to give us these slight dystopian elements in a realistic contemporary setting, but it wasn't fleshed out, and so it didn't make sense. And I was very confused. There was some issues in terms of religious beliefs in the background with the family that were never addressed. And it went unchecked, and I didn't like it because it wasn't so much as an issue with religion, right? That's not what I'm saying. There is a religious conservatism that is very harmful to other marginalized groups, and it went unchecked, and I didn't like it. And I think that if it went unchecked, and this was supposed to be a broader conversation about a teenager having to deal with more religious conservative parents that are not very open to the experiences of other people, that's a different thing, right? Because it's realistic, where you have teens who may be more liberal in mindset than their parents, and that's a difficult situation to navigate. One, just not even being adult, your brain hasn't developed. Like, how do you figure those things out when you're solely dependent upon these two humans who you fundamentally don't agree with? But that's not what happened in here. And I think to introduce a complex topic such as that, you really had to be willing to dig in, and it didn't do that. It didn't do it at all. I was very disappointed in that one, and I'm one of the outliers for that. The last Bookstore on Earth, I think there are people like me. It's kind of you either like it or you don't, and there are people who enjoyed it, and then there are people like me who are like, yo, like, there's no way. I couldn't suspend in my disbelief, even recognizing that, like, I'm not the intended audience, and I always do that. I'm hyper aware of how I review and talk about youth related materials because I am not the intended audience, but that also does not mean that they are above criticism, right? Because even then, even if the intended audience is a teenager, it still needs to make sense at the end of the day. And I think that both of these don't make sense. But with biology lessons, I think there are more people who have enjoyed this book than not. And I'm one of the outliers with this because the rating on this one is still relatively high. Still, I think above a 4.0. But I just, two very disappointing YA releases for 2025. And it made me very weary of what to expect going into the rest of the year for 2025 releases. Hasn't been as rough. It hasn't been as rough. However, it did make me quite nervous. Okay, now that we are done with that, let's talk a little bit about the best books that I've read so far. Okay, so the first one that we have is That's Not My Name by Megan Lawley. This is the first Megan Lawley book that I read. As a matter of fact, I believe that this is her debut. I read her, this came out in 2024. I read her 2025 release. Wasn't as good as this one, but I'm really enjoying her as a young adult thriller writer. This was, I needed, because I'm used to reading Holly Jackson, Karen McManus, Tiffany D. Jackson. Like, I'm used to those, and I wanted a new voice to check out, and this was it for me. This was a thing, right? I really did enjoy this. It is about a young girl who, it's hard to talk about this without spoiling it, but it is a teen girl who seemingly has woken up and has no memory. She's found on the side of the road. She has no memory of how she got there, no memory of really like who she is. And there's this guy who's claiming to be her dad that is taking care of her, but strange things are like happening, right? Like it's weird. At the same time, we have this other guy by the name of Drew, whose girlfriend has gone missing at the same time. And so you kind of get where this is going, right? So they've been searching for his girlfriend, and whatever you think this book is, it's not. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. Whatever you think this is, it's not. Because when I was reading this, I was like, ugh, how obvious. It's not. It's not in any shape or form. Like, no, it's not obvious at all. Love this book. Kept me on the edge of my seat. Was absolutely amazing. I mean, I cannot stop talking about this book. It was so good. So if you're looking for a new thriller to try out, that's definitely one. Another one that I read this year that I love, that was 5 stars, that I met the author, and I told her that I didn't know if I could read anything else by her because I read this book and it absolutely destroyed me. And she was like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I was like, I don't know either. There's only one other person who has done that, in this Mindy McGinnis with her book Heroine. And the book that I am talking about is Glass Girl by Kathleen Glasgow. 5 stars. Incredible, devastating, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, confusing, mind-blowing. I have so many words that could describe this book, and I still don't think it would be enough. It follows a 15-year-old main character who is struggling with alcoholism, and at first she is in denial. And this is one of the other books that I've read, because I read Thirsty by Jas Hammonds as well. And it's one of those books that I think is so needed for teen audiences, because when you talk about substance abuse, right, like alcohol, it's so hard to determine who is or is not abusing alcohol in that age range, even in high school, in college, because binge drinking is like a social thing to do. I could not imagine like how many kids I went to high school with, and especially in college, because I think that Jas Hammonds' book Thirsty does a very good job of kind of looking at like a college setting, how normalized that is, and you don't know who's really struggling, right? And so our main character drinks socially and has an alcohol abuse issue and doesn't want to address it until it comes to a point where it can't go unaddressed any longer. And so we do follow her into rehab and her ups and downs, and post rehab. And this is one of those books that's very real, and it's not sugar coated, right? It's not meant to give you these warm fuzzy feelings, everything's okay, tied in a bow, neat, perfect ending. And if you know anything about me, I love teen realistic books that tap into that side of life where it's like, no, this is real, and everything is not okay. It doesn't mean that things can't get better, but it's not okay, and that's okay to say that it's not okay. This one had me devastated. Beautifully done. I don't know if you know how you say like, I don't know if I'll reread it. I probably would reread it, right? I highly recommend listening to this one on audio, because I did listen to it on audio, and the narrator was phenomenal. But I did the same thing with Heroine with Mindy McGinnis. I read it in different formats because it's completely different experiences. And so I may do the same thing for Glass Girl, but so good, so good. After that, we have All the Blues in the Sky. I read this at the wrong time, but also the right time. This one deals heavily with grief. We are going to notice a trend in everything that I give 5 stars to. Back in the day, people used to say, Ashley, you love like books that emotionally like wreck you, because it takes so much for me to cry from media, right? And so when there's a book that moves me, like the author has done their job. They've done an amazing job. But All the Blues in the Sky by Renee Watson deals heavily with grief. And this is when I read not even, maybe like a little over a month after losing my grandmother. And I should have known that there was going to be some payment for me in the form of my emotions, because I believe like the author's dedication is to it's something along the lines, I'm going to misquote this, but basically it's along the lines of, to everyone who's lost someone and everyone who will, like, because at some point everyone will experience grief, right? And there's so many different ways to experience grief, because there's like this permanent grief that I think comes with death. And then there's this other form of grief that I'm currently experiencing, where I'm grieving people who are living. And that is very, very different. And in some ways, for me, a lot harder than grieving my grandmother, because I feel like there's closure there. And in that other situation, I don't feel like I really have any closure. But it follows a main character who suddenly loses her best friend, and she's going through group therapy, grief counseling, and she is struggling with connecting with the other kids, because they all had time to recognize when they were losing their person, and she unfortunately did not, because it was sudden and it was drastic, and she blames herself in part. And as you go through the course of the story, it unravels exactly like what happened, and all the emotions that she's feeling. And there's this essence to the book of grief isn't something that ever goes away. Like, it's something that you just learn to live with. It's not anything that we just, you get over. You don't ever truly get over it. It's just something that we keep with us, and we learn to live around it and with it. And this is another one of those books where the ending is not perfect, because that's not how life works, right? Life throws punches, and you just learn to take the punches, and you keep moving, and you keep going, and you just keep adjusting your life, because you just, it's part of the human experience. And I think that writing about grief in such a way, it's something that at some point all of us will be able to connect to, right? Like, we've all lost somebody, or we all will lose somebody at some point. And so I love that book so much. I still need to get myself a physical copy of that book. And I was devastated to know, like, the first time that I had met Renee Watson, like, she had lost like 20 plus people from the time of the pandemic up, like when the pandemic started, up until now. It was over 20 people that she had lost in a variety of different ways, not all related to COVID. But to know that she was experiencing such intense grief, like when I met her, like, you have so much respect, I have so much respect for her, of course, previously as an author, but you get more. You look at them in awe of how some people are able to continue to navigate life, having to experience, or having had to experience, such tragedy. And I don't know how she did it. I mean, I know that there are people who say the same of me. Like, how are you dealing with that? And it's like, you just do, because you don't, you have to continue to live. And I admire her strength, her courage, her vulnerability. Like, I just really, really appreciate her as a human, and being in her presence. Because when I met her, I was able to, like, go to lunch with her and everything. Like, being in her presence as a human, she's just energy. Her energy is beautiful. And I don't know if y'all are like energy people. I'm very big on energy. You could sit me in a room, whether it's virtually or physically in a room with somebody, and I will tell you yes or no based on their energy. Her energy was so light and beautiful, and just, I loved it. I really did. I absolutely loved it. After that, I have the Remarried Empress on here, and the reason why I included the Remarried Empress is because I've been loving every volume of this series. The Remarried Empress is the best manhwa that I have picked up, and I have been trying a little here and there. There are some other ones that I'm really trying to delve into, but nothing has hit me like the Remarried Empress. I don't know, it's because it's like this historical fantasy romance, if it's like the power plays, it's probably the political intrigue as well. That's something. The artwork is amazing. I just really like the storytelling in this one, and I love that the Empress has had these very vulnerable moments, has had all these things happen to her. Her husband gets a mistress and then starts treating the mistress better than her and gets the mistress pregnant, and he essentially divorces her. And it's not a spoiler because it opens up with her asking basically the clergy, like, my only request is that I'm able to get remarried. And you then backtrack to see how she got to that point, and knowing the things that she has had to put up with, and still to keep this composure about her and this regalness about her. It is, let me tell you, some of the best character work that I have seen in manga, manhwa, graphic novel. Like, I really, really enjoy it. So no matter what, I think Remarried Empress for me is going to consistently be a 5-star volume series for me. It didn't start that way, but these, like, by the time I started really getting into the series in the last few releases, they've been like icing on the cake, hun. Like, they've been so good. And then after that, I read my first Lisa Phipps book this year, which is shocking because I didn't realize I'd never read Starfish, which is another book in verse, and then Boom is also a book in verse. Oh my gosh, y'all. This one, it is tragic, okay? It is tragic. It's a quick read, but it is, once again, a very, very emotional read, and one where my heart broke into pieces because we have a main character whose mother, it just does not have a maternal bone in her body. She just can't be a mom. She can't stick around to be a mom, and he calls it kind of like her itch to leave, and she can't do it. And that results in him having to live with his grandmother, but his grandmother can't afford to really take care of him. They start off fine, but then eventually they're unable to pay bills. They end up homeless. Things end up changing a little bit, but then circumstances it gets to a point where I could not believe that it was happening to this main character. And I know that this is stuff that does happen, where a child will experience homelessness without adults being present anywhere, right? That's hard to know that that's a real thing that happens. And kids who become so ashamed that they won't say anything about it, right? But he tries to navigate homelessness alone, and it is not pretty. This is a difficult book to read. It has very explicit and I have to be very careful nowadays how I say explicit meaning that there are scenes on page of how he experiences homelessness and the things that he has to do to survive that it rocked me to my core. There was one specific scene that I'm not going to go into that literally had me gagging. I couldn't do it. It had me gagging, and I was like, holy shit. Oh my gosh. But well written, well done, absolutely adored it. I definitely will be reading Starfish by Lisa Phipps. I'm hoping it's not as heavy as And Then Boom, and I feel like And Then Boom, like the cover is very misleading, right? And I have got to do better about reading the synopses of books. I can't be this human anymore that doesn't read synopses. I can't do it because I go in, I look at the cover, I'm in the mood for something that's more contemporary, don't read the synopsis of the book, and then literally boom, I'm in the book and I'm like, whoa. This is not what I thought it was going to be. I should do a video like that. Guess what a book is going to be about based on the cover and see how wrong I am. It's actually a really good video idea. I might do that. All right, y'all. So those are some of the statistics and the best and worst / most disappointing books that I've read so far in Q1. Let me know what you've accomplished in Q1, what you've read, your best and your worst books. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're looking for ways to support the channel, all those links will be down in the description box below. And if you're looking to follow me on social media, all those links will be down in the description box as well. And I will be back with another video soon. Bye.